So just so everyone is aware, I know that this has been a very hectic and slightly stressful 24 hours, 36 hours for the Purple School family. So we are going to, as the second item on the agenda that I sent out, we are going to spend some time talking about the staff positive COVID case, as well as kind of what that means for the school moving forward and where we are with the health department. So we will get to that. While we do have some people still joining, did want to go ahead and go through the kind of general welcome and share some thank yous that we have from the board and make a quick announcement, and then we will jump into the COVID issues, and then we'll go through the rest of our agenda. So just some quick thank yous. I think first of all, just thanks to everyone in the last 24 hours since the emails went out about the staff COVID case for the kind wishes and the kind emails. I know everyone really appreciates that, and everyone appreciates how we're all, in this together and trying to be as supportive as possible. So just really quickly running through, and board members, if I leave anyone out, I apologize, but I am going to try to do this pretty efficiently. So the programs committee wanted to thank Emma Bennett for her graphic design work, Melanie Cohen, Amelia, Heidi, Jenia, Julie, Sunny, Teresa, Halima on marketing, and Amy Dumeyer for the planning and parent education. Admissions wanted to specifically thank Ramona and Annie Hoddlecox for giving so much time and skill and creative thinking to help with the tuition assistance program. Survival Guide wanted to give a big thanks to the entire committee for their ideas and thoughtfulness, and a special thanks to Sharon, Liana, Carmen, and Joyce for help with marketing, with market research. And we'll hear more from Guide later this evening. Development wanted to thank John Sexton for the cool Ripple Fund logo, and everyone who has donated to the Ripple Fund so far. And Sunny wanted to specifically thank Emma and Julie for stepping up and filling in after her new baby came unexpectedly early, and congratulations to Sunny. Facilities wanted to thank the entire crew for getting through leaf season, which I think we're all incredibly thankful for their work. Thanks to Justin for advice on how to repair one of the posts, Marius for facilitating some plumbing repairs that were needed, and Daniel for installing a new outdoor sink faucet. Member support wanted to thank all the class reps, which I think we all extend that thanks for all the hard work that they've been doing and all of the outreach. And Leslie wanted to give a heartfelt thanks to everyone for the kindness that people extended following their dog's death. So, and I think we all send lots of love to Leslie. And before we jump into discussing the next item on the agenda, I just wanted to give everyone a quick update. As many of you are familiar with, based on our rules and regulations and bylaws, the membership as a whole needs to approve changes in tuition. And so this is something that happens pretty much every year. This year, we're going to be doing that over email sometime in the second half of the month. So you will be getting an email from either the co-presidents or from Dan, our treasurer, explaining what the tuition rates will be for next year and asking for you to vote. As a reminder, each member family has one vote, and it'll be over a Google form. And so we would just ask for everyone to keep an eye out for that email and promptly respond to it so that we can get all of that moving for the admission season starting in January. So with that, we're going to start talking about the COVID case at school. So first, to just kind of give everyone where we are, what's going on. Thankfully, the staff member who tested positive is still asymptomatic, which we're all very thankful for, and we're hoping that they recover quickly and we're able to move on. We are still waiting on the test results for the rest of staff. So once we have those, we will provide updates. So I know in the email that was sent out last night, the staff member tested positive through a rapid test. That was confirmed today through a PCR test. We and have been in touch with the health department. Leslie's been coordinating with them and has talked to them multiple times today to figure out exactly what this means for the school. So definitively, as Leslie said in the email that went out this morning, the school is closed for the remainder of this week. The big question, and I know this is a question that we've gotten from a lot of parents and is a question that we are trying to get an answer to as quickly as possible, is whether or not the non-vaccinated kids who were in the Leaves and Tracks class at school on Monday and Tuesday are considered close contacts and therefore would need to quarantine. Our initial understanding from kind of like the CDC's website and guidance is that they are not. However, the health department makes that determination as part of a fact-specific inquiry for every single child development center that has a positive staff case. And so we've been in touch with them. They've been asking a lot of questions. Obviously, as everyone knows, the program is all outdoors. Children are all masked, as well as staff members. So we are providing all of that information, and then they are going to be advising us, hopefully this evening, or probably more likely at this point tomorrow, whether or not the children in those classes would be considered close contacts and would need to quarantine. So as soon as we have that information, we will pass that on, but that is where we are with the information from the health department. And then obviously, as the email said last night, we are hopeful that we will be able to reopen school, start having classes again next week. But a lot of that, of course, will be dependent on the remainder of staff's tests. So as soon as we have that information, we will share that. Before I turn it over to Leslie for anything I might have missed and then open it up for questions, I know that this is obviously a lot and probably stressful for families and scary. And so I want to just acknowledge that and recognize that I really appreciate this community and being a part of a community that's so supportive of each other. And so we will have some time for questions if anyone has any, but you should always feel free to reach out to Kate or myself via the co-president's email if you have questions or want to talk, and we're more than happy to have those conversations. And we're all kind of learning this together. This is the first time, luckily, in the past 2 years that the school has encountered this. And so obviously we're all trying to figure it out and learn together. So I thank you all for your patience as we go through this process. Leslie, is there anything I missed in terms of a general update?
The only thing I wanted to add is that I think you might have said it in the beginning, and is that that I have my phone here. Back in the olden days, they used to call you around the clock. So if that happens, if the health department calls me during this call, I'm going to get off the phone call, but it'll still be running. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. And then also I echo what Megan has said. Is like I'm really grateful, and thank you so much for all the wishes, the well wishes and votes of confidence that we've gotten. And again, I know that there's more concern, so I'm glad that we're discussing it now.
So we'll open it for questions now. Feel free to put questions in the chat. I know some people are going through bedtime and things like that. So feel free to put questions in the chat. Also, feel free to just unmute yourself. If anyone wants to raise their hand, they can, but it's not required if there are any questions or anything like that. Okay, I haven't seen any questions come through in the chat yet, but I recognize that they may still come in. But in the interest of time and wanting to make sure that we do get through our agenda, we will go ahead and start moving through the agenda. And then to the extent that questions come in, feel free to put them in the chat. But then also, Leslie and I are both happy to stay on at the end of the meeting if questions occur to you later. We're happy to stay on at the end of the meeting and answer questions then as well. And we'll keep the recording going for anyone who isn't able to stay on but may want the answers to those questions. So with that, we will move to Tales from School. So Leslie and Teresa, I will turn it over to you.
Oh, am I going first? Okay, I'll go first. Hi, it's me, Teresa. I'm the teacher in the Seeds class, and I am also Juna's parent. Juna's in Leaf's class. So, okay, Tales from School. You want to hear about seeds? The tale that I have to share is about. It has to do with play arcs and scaffolded play, and it's that in the Seeds class I feel like we found this really sticky arc. It's not the only one, and it won't be the only one, but it's boat. So it's hi Danny. So I'm talking Daniela about our boat in the sand pit. Next to the sand pit are all of these rocks under the cucusa dogwood tree. Am I saying that right? I think it's cucusa. And
it's Kusa.
Kusa. Thank you, Kusa. So under the Kusa dogwood tree, there are all of these rocks. And one day there was also a broom. And so we had a boat and a paddle, just like that. Bam. And the boat had to go lots of places. We had to go to the island where the iguanas were, and then we had to look for whales, and then we had to go swim with pigs, and we had to use binoculars to look for those things. We had to take turns with the paddle because there was only one, and guess what song the Seeds love? It's Row, Row, Row Your Boat. So row, and also row, row, row your boat is really the perfect length of time for a turn to paddle. It was so beautiful watching the Seeds. This broom went from a thing that was that couldn't be shared to a thing that was so easily shared and shared again, and turns were taken and taken and taken because there was a lot of travel on this boat ride. And finally we got to the island where the dinosaurs live, and we had to get up and feed them, and we had to make our own oatmeal. So you can see that this boat and paddle can go so many places. And but here's what was really great is that the next week when we came back to school, we were playing in the sand pit, and somebody said, "Oh, we got to get on the boat. Let's go." And that is when I felt so happy, because now the Seeds have this play arc that is theirs, that they made, and that's continuing. The next day, guess what? Somebody else. Oh, got to get on the boat. We're moving on the boat. This is what they do when we're going. So I can't wait to see the Seeds again and get on the boat again. I know it's still going to be there. Please tell the Seeds the boat's still there, and it'll be waiting when we get back. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And then, hold on a second. I'm going to remove your spotlight so you get there you go. Perfect. I actually have stories from all three, so it's in celebration of our parent education session tonight. I pulled together some dramatic play photos that I just had in the library, in my library, so let me share those with you if I can. So hopefully this will work for me. View, slideshow. Do you see it? Can you see it, guys? Okay, so this is from all three classes. You can see a little bit right there. So we'll go to here. This is in the Seeds class. Robin there on the left is a bird. She's in a nest. Now this is like a sensory pursuit that's like, so, you don't know how many pictures I have of children nested in that pile of liriope. I can't even tell you. But what happens is that it was like a feeling that she had, but then it quickly switched to where we were able to feed her seeds and bring her seed food. And then there on the right, B is cleaning a dinosaur, and Cleo and Chloe are actually having a dinosaur party. This is a really good example of how children will be in close contact, moving, by the way, moving all the time, but close in the same context, but playing completely different things with the same materials. So I just want to plant a seed with you that if you want to start with dramatic play at home, birthday party, tea party, and cleaning babies are all something that is really comfortable for 2- and 3-year-olds to do. It's almost like that's what they do themselves. So it's like a really good story arc to start with. How come it's not progressing? Okay, hold on. There, oh, we went too far. Okay, so I'm gonna, oh, it just kept going. It just kept going. Okay, so this is in the leaves class. I'm not gonna touch it because it's gonna go back. This is not the photo. I'll talk about this photo. So anyway, this photo set. This is a dramatic play with sticks, and what I was almost going to call her Mavis. I'm sorry, Teresa. Juna is recreating the map that we used to go to Eagle Forest, and she has a bunch of sticks lined up, and it was a collaborative effort between the children that are gathered there because they all wanted to be part of it, telling a story that they know. So this goes back to something that Amy's going to share later, is that stories are very relevant. Our own stories that we live, and stories that we read about or make up are all I was going to say fodder. I guess that's a good word for for dramatic play. Now here on the left, Bilal's writing $4 because we have a bakery happening right there that's cookies. Anna priced the cookies at $6, and which they were definitely worth $6, but Bilal came in for the sale price at $4. And all I did was that I recognized their play by saying $6 cookies. And this makes it official. This makes it a real bakery that they're obviously working in. And Bilal, as he's writing, he goes, this is for, and this is the $. So cookies are on sale. Up there in the top is what happened is as they started collecting all kinds of materials, it became, the cookies became food. So that's what happened. And then there in the lower photograph there with the bamboo leaf, the light was shining through, and we put on a puppet show, which the children found fascinating. But this is, I just want to go back to this idea that you don't actually have to buy anything or find anything to create imaginary play with children. So in the tracks class, on the left, we have this fairy house that started happening. Vivi created the fairy house. She's wanted to connect with her peers, so she got busy herself and said, I'm going to make this fairy house. She wove flower stems and scarves in there, and it attracted all this other place, so much so that they had to move house into the tea at first, actually on the right hand side where they decorated all the bushes with these scarves, and then in that middle photograph where they made the tea house into a fairy house. And this complements everything that's going on in the rest of the yard, and reminds us that pretty much at home, if you have a blanket, you have a house. So again, no fancy things needed. You need cushions, 2 chairs, and you have a house suddenly. So, and the reason why we scaffold all this is because of what you're about to see in this video. So this is where we're heading. This is where we're heading. This is me. Let me just give you truth, sitting, doing nothing. Okay, I'm doing nothing but watching. So this is a perfect day of what happens when scaffolded play takes off. My work is done. So that's where we're heading. That's what we're hoping for. So that play was seamless and happening, and that didn't even turn the camera far enough to get to the fairy house. So I apologize because I could have included that. So I will hand this over to, let me see, member support. Gary, we'll get you in here. Gary, where are we? Gary, there you are. I gotcha. I got you.
All right. Hello, everyone. This is Gary Liang, member support chair. Hope everybody's having a good week so far. I just want to talk about a little bit about our new initiative, and I apologize for sending the email out so late. I promise you the incoming next year, which is January, we'll give you guys more head notice. But so I feel like I should just take the time to talk about this a little bit more to let you guys know what is going on with this, and then we can continue on in January with this. So this new Q&A initiative is really just for another opportunity for all families to voice your questions or concerns, and also is a good place for you to give shout outs and also say thanks to teachers or other families or boards or anybody at all. Feel free to send that to, and we'll definitely talk about this during our membership meeting. Also, you will get a reminder, perhaps either from Amy or me, on that Sunday before the week, or the Sunday before the membership meeting. So hopefully that will give you ample amount of time to send in any questions. Also, I do want to let you know that your class rep will always be here, so you don't have to wait till membership meetings. We're always here to help. So whenever you feel like you have a question, reach out to your class reps or me. And another reminder that the whole board is also here for you guys too. So if you feel like your question is more directly to a certain department, feel free to give them a question and let them let them answer it. And also, I want to talk about if you don't know the specific board's email, I would ask that all boards right now to type in your email and let them know what department is that, and then so that everybody will have it on this chat. And I don't know if we have an actual board directory. So if we don't, let's make one so that we can send it out for all families. Great, awesome, thank you, Janet. I see you now. Additionally, I just want to talk about if you don't know, which department specifically that you want the questions to go to, member support is a great place so that I can help you. So if you just want to ask a question that you don't know, just send it to me. And my email is also here, membersupportchair@tpcns.org. Lastly, we have one question from parents from the Trax family. And the questions in regard to a warmer packs, if we have enough during the cold days, if all the classes, if the seeds or the leaves are in the session the same day. Just want to make sure that the tracks still have that resource. And Leslie, do you want to answer that real quick before we move on?
I'm muting. I'm sorry. It takes me a minute to find the switches and I don't know why. Yeah, we actually do. And we have those. I'm going to add me as a spotlight so you're not on the spot, but we have a full case of 40 of those disposable ones, but we actually try not to use those. And this is why. Those are spiky, and if you have a child who doesn't like labels or little knots in their socks, you will understand why they don't like those particular tools. Plus, it takes a long time for them to warm up. What we do when the cold weather comes is we keep a crock pot with a batch of rice loaded socks ready to go, so that those actually retain their heat much longer, and they're soft, and those are washable. And yes, we do have enough for everyone to use one, and for both classes. And those are usually, children like to hold them, but they mostly like to put them down through their shirts. We have hot water bottles. We have enough crochet blankets for every child to have one. And we're really fortunate, honestly, to have a washer and dryer in the basement. We have a radiator that warms up things on a short-term basis. Like if we need just something kind of like mittens warmed up or pants warmed up, we have the radiators and little hooks on the radiators that work really well. And then finally, we have tea. So the main thing is that we need to move. So it's like, that's going to be your number one plan, is moving. So when we move, we may actually move with our rice our heated rice with us to go to put down the shirts. We never needed those last year, but here we are. We never know what we're going to need. So we're kind of prepared for all things. So sometimes if a child's, which has already happened actually this year, where a child's clothes may get wet, and they really want to have those clothes back. This is why I'm so grateful we have a dryer, because we can throw that, they can borrow the things that we have in the lending library, we can throw their gear into the dryer and we can pull it back out. So that's kind of the plan. And I hope that answered your question. Please let me know if it didn't. I did have pictures, but I'm not gonna like share the screen again, Gary. I'm just not gonna do it. Okay, but I do have pictures. I'll put them up on the Week in Review, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. I just want to add on to that too. We are doing the gear swap as well. Yes, Julie. Yes, we're doing that. We're working on it. So please just follow up with your class reps. We're gonna try to start gathering gears, and then we're gonna try to add on to what Leslie already has in place for these as well. So I'm gonna let Teresa handle the admissions update at this time. And looking forward to talk to you guys next month.
The teacher got tested even though they have no symptoms and
Hello. Hi. 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 Hi, everybody. Hello, families. I'm going to try to take just a few minutes of your time this evening to share. Yeah, thank you, Gary. It's always great to hear from you. So I'm going to try to share a couple of important links. We are zooming ahead into admissions and enrollment season, and that means it's time to start building our classes for the next school year. You'll be hearing a good bit from admissions in the coming months, and I'm introducing myself again. My name is Teresa. My child is Juna. I teach the SEEDS class, and I'm also the admissions chair on the board of directors. And my favorite fruit is persimmon. So my favorite part of working on admissions is sharing about our program and our mission with new families and hearing their questions. Some of you were once those families, and I'm so grateful that you all chose the school, and we now are here in community supporting our children and this school together. Here are 3 things. Number 1 is recommitments. You're going to receive an email this week about recommitment deposits and sibling admissions. Please take a few minutes to read that email. Your recommitment deposit secures your child's spot in their class for the next school year. This deposit will post to your Jovial account sometime in the next week with a due date of February 16th. If you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me. Like I said, I love hearing your questions. And also in the email that you'll receive is information about applying for siblings. If you're planning to apply for a sibling to attend the school next year, please take a look at the memo that you'll get in your email. And please do contact me with any questions or concerns. I would love to talk to you about what that looks like and hear any questions at all that you have. I'm going to drop you my information again after a couple of other things. So that was 1. Okay, here comes number 2. Tuition assistance. Thanks to the contributions of our community to the Ripple Fund, preparations are underway to offer some amount of tuition assistance to some families for next school year. And in an effort to get a sense of interest from within our current community, we've created a very short survey, which we are going to send to you via email, but which I'll also link you to right now in the chat. So here comes what I hope is the right link. And here we go. Okay, this is just 2 questions. And I so appreciate you taking the time and providing your feedback as we build this program. If you have any issues with that link, it's my fault. Let me know. Thank you. We're gonna work on it. Okay. Oh my gosh. Let me try one other thing. So listen. Thanks, Kuna. And thank you, Halima. I knew somebody would just let me know immediately. So I'm getting that link to you again. I'm going to move on to number 3. Okay. Number 3. I made you a 1, 2, 3. So this is the last thing. Here we go. the Every Family campaign. Have you contributed to the Every Family campaign yet? You still can. I'm about to drop another link right here for you, and I'm really sure it's going to be the right link. Okay, so you can go ahead and follow this link while I talk to you some more. Here it comes. Okay, let me know if that's the wrong link. I'm really sure it's the right link, but I've been sure about a lot of things in my life. So, all right. Please know that this is the one time during the year that we will ask current families for a donation. And our goal is, yeah, it's the right link. It's the right link, so you can click it. Go ahead and click it. Our goal is 100% current family participation. Even $1 helps us reach our goal of full participation, even $1 from every family. And I'm going to borrow language from the member support email that went out recently. When every family gives in any amount, even $1, it makes our school look awesome when we apply for grants. It really matters that everybody joins in. The link right there in the chat sends your donation directly to our school's Ripple Fund. So remember the tuition assistance program I mentioned that admissions is so excited to get to share about with all of you and with all of the new families who are going to find our school for the first time and meet us soon. These are the donations that are making that possible. By following this link and giving, your contribution combines with those of alumni families whose kids are now grown or practically grown, and helps to build a foundation for a fund that will extend throughout our community and on to future Purple Schoolers that we haven't even met yet. Every dollar counts. Your donation matters because it comes from you. So I'm grabbing one more link for you to see if I can send you to the other survey. Okay, so that was Ripple Fund. Please follow the link. Here comes another try at our other form. And finally, here comes my email and my phone number. Okay, really, if you have any questions, just contact me. You can call me, you can write me. I would love to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, Teresa. So we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is a survival guide update. Leslie, could you spotlight myself and Jennifer, because we're gonna kind of tag team this. Let me see if I can do it.
All right.
Okay. There we go. Okay. So first, I just wanted to take a minute to introduce Jennifer. And Jennifer, I'll let you introduce yourself. But in case anyone hasn't had a chance to meet Jennifer, she is our fabulous director of Survival Guide this year. And so Jennifer, I'll let you introduce yourself and your kid at Purple School, and then we'll jump into the guide update.
All right, perfect. My name is Jennifer Hinton. My daughter is Lola Olowoyeye. She is a C this year, and she's in Teresa's class, and she's so excited about the boat. So that's my introduction. That's our first year with the school.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jennifer. So I know a lot of families are very familiar with Guide and with the school's history with Guide, but I know we also have some new families who aren't. So if everyone will just bear with us for a couple of minutes, I am going to give a little bit of background on Guide and then what kind of led to the transition. I'm sorry, my cat is trying to steal my dinner. What led to the transition to the things that we're focusing on this year and what Jennifer and the Survival Guide Committee have been up to. So for those of you who may not know, Survival Guide is a document that the school has been preparing that includes some basic kind of front matter information about the city of Tacoma Park, but mainly focuses on providing ads and contact information for local businesses. And the school has had, this guide has kind of, grown and transitioned over the years from an initial like kind of stapled short document to this very fancy professional looking book that is delivered throughout Tacoma Park. And the way that the guide was created is that we did member sales of ads. And so each member family had a sales quota that they needed to meet. Some member families would, go beyond that, but that was how we had ads put in the guide to create the guide. And then the Survival Guide Committee gave trainings on how to sell ads and put the guide together. And then we had it professionally printed, and we have a consultant that we've worked with who helps design the guide. We would have it professionally printed and then delivered out. So that's kind of some general background on what the guide was. A lot of you may have seen this. You may not have known that it necessarily came from Purple School or didn't, make the connection at the very beginning. I remember when we first moved into our house, we got one. And so it's very possible that a lot of you have seen this, even if you haven't been a part of the school putting the guide together. Now, of course, last year, once COVID hit, we needed we didn't do anything with guide really last year, largely because we knew a lot of businesses were very strapped. Obviously, there were concerns about trying to go to businesses to sell ads. And so it really just became a year for us to really start thinking critically about guide. Guide has been really important for the school because it brings in a lot of money. It is a very high dollar fundraiser for the school. While it does bring in a lot of money, it also costs a lot of money. The administrative costs of preparing the guide, especially because of the printing, actually ate into about 50% of the money that we would bring in from guide. But even with eating into that 50%, it still did bring in quite a bit of money for the school. And one of the advantages of it being our own fundraiser is that the money that came in was, of course, unrestricted. So it could go to whatever the school needed, whether that was, salaries for staff, benefits, equipment for the school, anything. Unlike a lot of the, grants or subsidies that we might receive that have very specific tracking information and can only go to certain items. However, there are also issues with the way that the guide has been run in the past. And as we were really, given the opportunity to think critically about what we wanted guide to look like in the future, there were some things that we realized were really out of line with the school's mission. And the two biggest were, there was a real concern about equity and the way that member families were being asked to participate in the guide, because there were a lot of member families who were able to kind of buy the ads that they were supposed to be selling to meet their quota, either, purchasing gift certificates from businesses in exchange for, providing ads, or having their own businesses or the companies that they work for providing ads. And with our school's kind of renewed focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, thankfully led under Yasmin's fabulous leadership, we have really been looking at how the way that guide has operated in the past does not really serve a lot of those equity goals. So that was a big concern. And the other concern was sustainability. Guide printing this, I think it's over 100 pages book, and so many copies, many of which are still in the basement of Purple School, was not in line with the school's nature-based and environmental missions. And so that's kind of where we got to last year, and that we knew we had these issues, but guide has been a fantastic source of income for the school and also a really great connection point to the businesses of Tacoma Park for the school. And so Jennifer and her fabulous committee were tasked with, here's what we've done in the past, here are the issues. Could you please come up with something that addresses all of this? And they have done an absolutely amazing job. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Jennifer and to the entire guide committee for all of the work that you all have been doing. And I know that, you know, the goalposts have kind of been moving throughout this year thus far as we figured out what might work and what is going on. So I really want to thank you all so much for your work. And I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer to just give everyone an update on kind of where things stand with Guide and what you can expect to see this year and moving forward.
Yeah, thank you so much, Megan. Can you guys hear me? I just want to make sure. Great. Yeah, and I just want to also similarly give like a big thank you to the committee. Like, you guys rock, you're awesome. You know, this is like an elephant that's been like roaming the earth for so many years, and like everyone from day one has sort of looked at this and said, what can we do to help? And so there's been a very like entrepreneurial spirit within the committee to try to tackle this and some of the sort of pain points that the print guide had. And so I think where we started as a committee is, you know, exactly what Megan just said. It was like, you know, recognizing the climate of COVID and the pandemic and the sort of, you know, the pressures that businesses are facing right now, like put our heads together to explore what would the survival guide look like if we were to design it in 2021. I imagine that many of you would not think to do a print like magazine in 2021. And so that's really where we started, and had like several sort of collaborative sessions within the team where we sort of narrowed on several ideas, but the main three ideas that we've been sort of tossing around and exploring is like whether it be like a newsletter with sponsored content from businesses, or an online auction that gets donations from businesses, or most prominently, the idea that's sort of front of our heads right now would be like a survival guide website, right? It would function similar to the print guide. It would have an online directory, and it would have ads from businesses, for example. And so for each of those ideas, we're sort of, the committee has had the Herculean task of exploring like what would parent involvement look like for each of those. And I think three sort of critical questions that Megan sort of introduced at the front, which is like, how do these ideas sustain the school financially? How well does it align with the overall sort of brand and mission of the survival guide of like being a touch point with the community? And I think finally, not just a survival guide, but like how well it aligns to the school's mission and values. You know, recognizing that many of the traditions and practices that we've used for the print guide, though wildly successful, you know, we're sort of reimagining and sort of envisioning things in a new way, which is a very sort of, you know, I really can like applaud the committee and the team, because they've really been sort of thinking outside the box for these questions. And as we're learning more, as we're sort of presenting more, we're learning more. And so I would just say like, it's like for also doing like community and market research. So one of the things we did early on, and I apologize for my internet connection's unstable. Sorry about that. So for example, like, you know, just thinking about each of these questions in a very broad way. And I think one of the things we're trying to balance right now, as I'm sure Leslie and Megan will, and everyone else will pile on to, is like, how do we do something meaningful this year while sort of keep our eye on like a longer term strategy? And so we're learning so much by, I think, having those conversations around those questions I just talked about. And I think, you know, what you'll expect from us this year is, you know, as we are sort of exploring ways to raise funds to support this new sort of longer term strategy, whether it's a website, is like your feedback, your ideas, your energy to help us sort of shape this new strategy for the school. And I think sort of the two other pieces that we're like narrowing on is like reconnecting with longtime supporters of Survival Guide to let them know, like, hey, we're still here. We appreciate your support. Here's where we're going, you know, and just sort of thinking about sort of those three questions that I mentioned earlier, and sort of engaging with the community and the school to move them forward. So I just want to just say that, and again, just, you know, hats off to the committee, because one of the things that we felt early on is like the Survival Guide is such a wildly successful product. You know, I know at times for the committee members, it feels like uncomfortable touching that thing, but we're moving the ball or the rock uphill, and I think we're making progress by having a lot of the conversations we're having now. I don't know if there's anything else that I should have touched on, Megan. That's like my 10,000-foot view.
No, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And thank you again so much to the committee. I know that this is a really big task, and we really appreciate everyone on the committee, you know, getting into the weeds on this and figuring out kind of what next steps are. So we will look forward to hearing from you, Jennifer, and the guide committee as we move forward. But really, really do appreciate all the work that you all have done thus far. And thanks so much for the update.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So with that, we will turn it over to Amy to go through our parent education portion of the evening. And then as a reminder to everyone, we will stay on after the parent education in case there are some follow-up questions at the very end, because I know some people haven't, you know, have joined since the beginning of the meeting. Over to you, Amy. Thanks.
Thanks, Megan. I feel kind of, yeah, I'll do that thing that you do. You introduce yourself again and again and again to the children. So I'm Amy, and this is my, I always forget, I think 8th year in the school, and I am the parent of Oliver, who's in the leaves class. And I am the parent educator for my committee work for the school. Okay, so we're going to kind of follow, let's see, we have 39 minutes, right? Is that right? Something like that. Okay, we will do, we'll try to do as much justice as we can to the topic of scaffolded dramatic play. And Leslie will share the screen on my behalf. Thank you so much. And I thought we would dive, my thinking on this topic is it dovetails with our meeting last month when we were really focusing on story with our author visit. And also because we're headed into a break season with our children. So maybe in thinking through this topic tonight, it might spark some ideas for time together so that maybe you can have a little free time as well. So tonight we're going to learn about dramatic play and how to set up a play arc. A play arc is a fancy terminology for a storyline for play. And I use storyline intentionally because the best ideas for play are rooted in story. And at our school, we teach dramatic play in a scaffolded way. I think maybe at the first membership meeting, I talked a little bit about what is scaffolded, but I thought I would just touch upon it briefly now. In teaching and in parenting, it turns out, when we scaffold something, we add temporary support as needed while children are practicing and learning something new. Scaffolding, in this sense, works similarly to the temporary scaffolding on a building. It is in place when it's needed, and then once it's not, it's removed. So at our school, In dramatic play, our teachers scaffold so that the children can learn a deeper, engaging, more in-depth way of playing. And they do that by infusing story. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And parents can do this at home too. So on our next slide, yes, that slide, or slide 2. You can stay on slide 2. Sorry, yes, thank you. Just as a quick reminder, last month, I invited 3 alumni children to speak at our meeting. So we had 12-year-old Diana, 11-year-old Finn, and 10-year-old Cora. They all shared that story enriches and extends their play. I'd like to add my aside view, that a primary reason why these 3 preteens, it's like really heart-wrenching for me to think of them as preteens, but that they really are preteens, and that they're still playing really deeply, is because they learned how to play in an engaging, lasting way using story. So I thought tonight I'd kind of bridge what we learned from them. Actually, I could probably just invite them back and they could do this whole presentation on my behalf. But alas, I'll build on the important points that they introduced to us last month. So on the next slide, that is Diana, Finn, and Cora, not in their preteen current state, but that's years back. I just found it and just thought it was, I don't know. I remembered that day and what they were playing, and that indeed they were playing dramatic play arc. But our alumni children taught us that an ingredient for lasting play is to start with a book or a familiar story. Diana talked about books that she heard from Leslie at school when she was 3 and 4 and 5 years old. Finn talked about a series of novels that he currently read. Well, he read a few. He read some months ago. And then Cora talked about a story from a show that some people involved in the play had seen and some people had not seen. So this idea of this storyline, something that's familiar, a lot of times coming from a book, but can come from another place. The story sparks an idea and gives a common reference point for the play. I think even having the book there with you to look through helps. Like as an example, this is a book actually that was a play arc for one of my kids. My 3rd son's tracks class really loved to play the antlered ship. But having a book when you're trying to create, when having the book right there with you when you're working on your play arc can remind people of the common reference point. I picked this book off the shelf, just one, because it reminds me of Reed's class and this play arc, but also it has a map, which is like an added bonus. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a map in the front pages, which can help spark play. And then just even finding something, like I'm going to go to the page with the ship to start the play off with saying, we need a ship. So how are we going to make that? Are we going to use the fallen tree? If I were outside, for instance, or let's see the ship. Will we use couch cushions, or are we going to line up 3 chairs? Are we going to sit on these stumps? Should we roll a log over this way? It can be an entry point, but from our alumni children, they all said that we should start with a book. So we're going to dive into that a little bit further coming up. And then the next slide just has the other points that these 3 alumni children raised. That we should include trouble. We need to collaborate, and finally to add imagination. So Diana, Finn, and Cora all talked about lasting play so engaging that it goes on for weeks and weeks, and it just never seems to finish. And I think Leslie showed us a video, that small video. You can stay on that slide, Leslie, that's okay. Slide, whatever, number 4. The video of the tracks class where she was, P.S. she wasn't doing nothing. She was observing the students and thinking about her next moves. But like in the moment, it feels like no one needed you. I think that that's something we hope for as parents too, that the children can get so engrossed in their play that we're not needed to be in the mix. So how do we get that lasting play? Well, Diana talked about scary stories or those with trouble, as we say often in school, and trouble is exciting and trouble is engaging. So including trouble is definitely an ingredient, which I'll touch upon in a little while too. And then Finn talked a lot about collaboration and being flexible, how when you incorporate other people's ideas, the resulting end product is something better than what you would have created individually. So I think, being able to listen, hear, and accept other people's ideas is something to keep in mind when we're trying to create dramatic play at home. At school, our teachers call this the agree to agree. I also think Finn didn't go, he definitely talked about this, but I just want to add a layer a little bit more in depth that when one person shuts down all the ideas or claims like ownership, this is my story that I'm playing, it kind of just, it ends the play and it ends the fun. It fizzles out. So also, it's almost always why at school, the teachers just kind of redirect when someone wants to kill the trouble. Like, for instance, I have a sword, I'm just going to kill the ogre who is our trouble, or I'm going to, instead of finding another solution, the play's over too quickly and it's not lasting and not engaging. And I first watched Leslie when I was a co-opper present this when she was reading a Baba Yaga book and it had trouble obviously in it. And they, when she reached like just the peak of the climax, she was holding the book facing her, and then she said, and then Baba Yaga ate all the children and the end. And she shut the book. And the book really wasn't over, but it kind of, for me, sparked this idea of if you just fix the trouble right away or resolve the trouble, even though eating the children, I wouldn't necessarily call that a resolution, but it just ended the storyline. The children, of course, weren't having that, and no, that's not the end. And that same kind of message carries over with the scaffolding of their play. So collaboration can make something that's bigger and better. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can start nurturing that at home with our children. And then Cora explained that you should, starting with a familiar story is always helpful, but then it's better when you use your imagination to add details that weren't necessarily part of that original story. So I think these three bullet points plus the idea of starting with story is our key takeaways from our alumni presenters. And now on the next slide, I just wanted to start talking about the adult role for what we might try to do at home and what our teachers do at school. So thinking of the adult role more as a facilitator instead of like a play character is what we'll try to do tonight. So the adult as a facilitator often begins by creating a bare storyline so that the details can be filled in collaboratively, like just kind of a shell of a story. And that is really what a little bit about what Finn was explaining to us, that if he were just to write the story, it wouldn't have been as good as if lots of people kind of filled in the details. So when you suggest a topic of play, we kind of just do the bare minimum. Maybe you say the name of the play. Leslie wrote a week in review about how she created an idea for play. It later became named something like Polar Bear is Hiding, but I don't even think it had that name at first. She just said, we have to find a baby polar bear. So that was the bare shell of that play idea. So you might create just the name of it or the general theme, like bakery or chocolate factory, and then leave the rest for some collaboration between your child and yourself in this planning stage. Like you could create the trouble together. You could just say, what will the trouble be? Do we have an angry customer? Did we run out of ingredients for the bakery idea for the chocolate factory? But, being lost at sea, having sea creatures surrounding your ship. If we were doing the antlered ship that I showed you, having rough waters that were too hard to navigate, losing the map. What will our trouble be? And then working to create the characters, keeping, this is the important part here, like we want to keep an open heart to different ideas, being flexible to make space for various roles people might want to try out. This makes me think of my, actually Finn and Diana's class. They were doing the Nutcracker play arc. And often that was a big play arc in their class. And some people thought that there could only be one Clara, because if you read the book, The Nutcracker, or watch the ballet, there is just one Clara. But then there just became this revolutionary idea that there could be two Claras, and there could actually be 3 or 4 Claras, and keeping space for the fact that it doesn't have to be true to the story, but we can merge different characters from different stories or make space for more than one of a character if that's what someone's idea, an idea that brings to the table. So I think in the process of doing these things, collaboratively putting the ideas in place, children begin to own their roles. Okay, on the next slide.
Wait. I do want to say,
oh yeah,
they own their roles, but also they begin to accept other people's ownerships of their roles. So
yes.
by opening it up, and I think it was interesting because I was just thinking, it's like if you were an adult facilitator, almost throwing a wrench into the play is often interesting because it teaches flexibility, and also it just is a way to like practice conflict resolution, which we'll talk about more later, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Oh, every time I move my mouse, it moves the slide. So I'm going to go on mute and get back to where you are.
It's okay. I think we're on slide 6 whenever, yes, it opens, and remember how, like, I said a few slides ago, like if you're just owning, if someone in the play is owning it only as theirs or shutting down other ideas, it just ends the play. It's not fun anymore. So this is really good practice, this idea of opening up character roles. Also, all of these are, I failed to mention before, but these are gifts that pay it forward for your child for when they are on the elementary school playground and are trying to negotiate a lot. You don't want to be like, you don't want to shut down the play. That ends the fun. So when they have practice with opening their heart, making space, I think it's just so beneficial as they age. This is kind of piggybacking on the idea of the collaborative ideas and people making space for other ideas. It's really important for you, the parent, to insert your ideas and to remember that you're allowed to say no as the adult, as in like, no, I don't want to be a princess, or I don't want to cook at the bakery. I only want to be the customer. And there's a gift in that because it helps the kids practice hearing someone saying no. And then they have to change their idea or be flexible with their original idea or incorporate your ideas. So that's like inserting your own ideas. And that can be just also to help with that gift giving and to help them practice being flexible. But it also can be for your comfort and for your time allowance. You know, if you don't in that particular moment, if you don't have time to be this certain character or something that's inserts you so far into the play, you can say, yes, bakery sounds like a great idea. I will be in charge of telling you the ingredients you have to collect. That's how I'll play this. And then you'll see, you can start to see how that like is really a supporting secondary role and isn't really involved in the storyline, but you're still kind of scaffolding the play. And my next bullet point kind of explains that. So as you go, you can weave in play invitations without actually really being involved. For instance, you could say something like, here, I have these maps in case you want to use them. Or here's some paper. You probably need to make a map for your ship so you don't get lost along the way. Why don't you use this rolled up paper that I found as your map? And that kind of gets them set up in extending their play, deepening their play. It gives them an idea for something that they can do to keep the play going, but it doesn't really, it doesn't put you at the center of it. You're just like supporting as they go along. And then stepping away, which I know for some children it's hard to have their parents step away, but actually removing yourself from the play and allowing them to really shape the play arc. I did want to just put a small note here that if there's more than one child playing, adults definitely reinsert themselves to help with conflict resolution, but both at our school, the teachers do that. And then, you know, if we adults do that too, like if on a, when children, more than one children are gathering like in a play situation. But due to the length of, we only have 19 minutes left. So conflict resolution is a larger topic, conflict resolution in play, and we're planning to explore that at an upcoming meeting. So it's not ignored, it just won't be touched upon really tonight. Okay, so some tips for home about, I listed Diana and Finn and Cora's key ingredients of how to kind of make lasting play. But when you're actually just trying to come up with that storyline, you definitely want a problem that needs to be solved, which is often a hook that engages children in the play and invites them to kind of imagine possible solutions. A lot of times the problem can be like something or someone needs to be rescued or something needs to be repaired. Those are easy, like go-to ones you can start with. And a pretend vehicle kind of gets things moving, like literally, but pretend in a pretend way. And it kind of just gives a place for the play to start. A lot of times children like to go on that vehicle to get it going, and then they leave the vehicle, but always return to it. Teresa just gave a really good example of this, that the seeds are playing boat, and that is their pretend boat with their pretend oar. But at home, the pretend vehicle can just, I mean, it doesn't have to be anything. I think the boat was an awesome example too. It doesn't have to actually be anything real. It can just be the space under, if you have a table, you know, you could drape a blanket over that, and that can be, the space underneath that can be your vehicle, or it can just be a chair turned backward. And then even better if you start labeling things. With a sign or a flag or an index card, it really just achieves buy-in. Like, yes, obviously that's a rocket ship because that says rocket ship. And buy-in just meaning that the children think, yes, that thing is what you're saying it is because you labeled it. It's kind of magical. We have some some photos of labeling things as they are. Plus then it brings, there's so much literacy development. I loved Leslie's tale from school. She was saying, you know, she labeled just $6 cookies, and then that made the bakery very official. But then you can see naturally kids Bilal just came in and he wanted to also write, make marks to say, no, they're on sale. So his marks had a lot of meaning too. They're now $4. And that just adds another level. If there's a surface for kids to add to the labeling, add to the writing, can always help extend play. And then on the next slide, just another tip from home is just to help your children see everyday home objects or everyday, like things in the forest or nature objects in new ways. An umbrella, like these are just examples, like an umbrella can symbolize the sail of a ship. Even something as basic as a colored piece of paper can symbolize a horse pasture or whatever. But you're saying, oh, look, I have a horse pasture here for you. And you're handing them the paper. And then they think, yes, that is a horse pasture. And they won't, when we repeatedly do this, they won't get stuck in the idea that they don't have a tractor, because this is a tractor. I can make anything a tractor, and it helps, you know, we want the mindset of we don't actually need things, specific things to make this play happen. Anything can stand in. Play objects don't have to be grand or elaborate, but rather just symbolic. So an example, like a tiny stick held up to your eye can be used to look out for land on the ocean when you're on the antlered ship. Because you deem it so, then it is that thing. And that can help by, we can help by modeling that. I think Leslie, that's funny, that picture just stuck in there, but it is super cute. That is a dramatic play arc that we were just playing with a template, but just some example of dramatic play arcs. I mean, there's so many, but I just, you know, Polar Bear is Hiding is a play arc that happened at school this year. The Antlered Ship is a play arc that happened, and so is Bakery or Restaurant. And then play arcs can happen, they happen at school or at home, but they can also happen in nature. So some play arcs that have been played in the forest are Chocolate Factory and Broken Down Rocket Ship and Dragon. And there's just so many examples of where it's not super complex or complicated, but you start with a basic idea, you add some trouble and some characters and some collaboration, and then they can become lasting. Yeah, and really engaging. I have in our last couple of minutes, we want to show some pictures of some of the labeling and the planning that's happened, and then just run through some books that really inspire play. That might be nice if you're able to check out a couple books from the library before you find yourself with the stretch of days together. If that would be helpful, these would be some great titles to start with. Okay, so Leslie, do you want to talk about these, since you know?
I can really quickly, because I mean, the books I'm so excited about that we listed for you. Okay. But the on the left there is Ice Alert, which is the problem that we're trying to solve, is that there was ice on the in the play yard. So just simply writing that meant that we had to, everybody that came in was like, oh, Ice Alert, it was a mystery that had to be solved. And then children started drawing the ice that they found on the other board. On the right hand side is Mud Salad. So we're just thinking about like how you can use one thing for another. This is a math thing with the tracks. It was a math check-in. Actually, it was a key challenge when they arrived one day that they had to make these plates of food. But it's also just lets you know that anything can be anything. Hold on a second. I got to go back to how I'm good moving. These two drawings that you see are dramatic play arcs that were drawn. So what'll happen, I do mapping with the children. So it's story mapping, I call it. I don't know, what is it, Amy? Is it a thing?
Yes, that's a thing, and that and story
So-
maps take a lot of forms. So yeah, that's
Yeah, so
definitely.
this is the way I do story mapping. So this is like on the left-hand side, it's How to Find Gold, which is actually a book that we've included. And on the right, it's Tasty Baby Belly Buttons. And I'll draw an arrow. And then what happens is that once I draw the pieces, actually children start adding the components that are the layers. It's a way to reflect and to check in with children about to give them voice. So basically they are telling us, it makes their play real. Plus, it makes them reflect about how they could improve things, how they shared things. They own what one person is voicing with what they want to have happen in the story. And really, it's about teaching flexibility because these do not follow the stories exactly. And the thing is that if a child gets locked in crafting the story exactly, there's usually a lot of frustration, and there's also a lowered sense of ownership and of creativity. So by making a story map, it like celebrates how we're actually incorporating elements of our own or elements of the children's imagination. So, and then on the left is a tracks reflection thing that we were trying to figure out what we needed, the ingredients that we needed to, actually this was for the book Quest, and those trilogies included in this. And then on the right hand side are actual maps. So it's like these are the maps of the crocodiles and the dangers that were in a small world play, actually. So manifestation. So you can do whole body and small world play as dramatic play arcs. And I'll go back to what Amy said about, that a green piece of paper could be, the forest in your small world play, and the stones could be the crocodiles crossing, or a blue, in this case it was blue placemats, but anyways, were rivers. So we collected a bunch of books for you. I'll kick off just this one. So can I, Amy? So
Well, yeah.
Regards to the Man in the Moon is absolutely an essential book to teach dramatic play to children. So it has so much in it that you can dive into, which we do every time. I use this book actually to introduce dramatic play for children who are struggling with the idea of dramatic play and cooperative play. So it has the agree to agree in it. The children actually approach them and say, they approach the characters that are here on the cover, and they want to join the play. And I always tell the children, these two children have a choice right now. They could look at those children and say, no, we're not going to help you. And then, you know what? The story ends. So that's where it would end. And the children are all like, no, they need to let them in. So we open that back up. Plus, there's this whole thing about the child who is trying to find his way into his new home and new family. That's the child that's on the left. And Louis is his new pa. That's how it opens. So it's a great opportunity to talk about families and how families are formed and what they're about, and to plant a seed that there's many kind of families. And it's a loose parts playbook. So you almost have to have it at our school. We don't have a choice, because they create these spaceships with stuff in Louis's junkyard. And one of the challenges that we do is we go back through the book to see if we can figure out which pieces the children used to create the imaginary play. And so you can see that they're using a strainer and if you cut on the hat is a colander. Is that a strainer? Is that a colander that she's using as a microphone? So the thing is that this is something that you could see on our play yard any day of the week, of children using things that they're not originally intended for. Journey.
Yeah, I was just gonna. I mean, you'll have to you're probably better to run through these quickly. But I was just.
I mean, like I tell people when I'm doing dramatic play things, it's like, you make up stories, and I always use the example Waterworld, and I can't see any of your faces, but I'm going to tell you Waterworld's a terrible movie, but it's a great play arc because children get it automatically. You just say, we're on a boat and there's no land, it's all water. It's equal to like everything's lava, I guess. And Journey, Quest, and Return kind of build on this idea that you're living in a world that looks kind of like you wanted to, but also completely not like you wanted to. And there's trouble in each book. So that they're wordless is a strength, actually. So when you read a wordless book, there's a lot to talk about in a wordless book, a lot of story to tell and share with children. And these are visually beautiful. So it's like it appeals to children, these 3 books. And, you know, if you were just going to get one, I would definitely get Journey. And then the other 2 are kind of like icing on the cake. And then this is the How to Find Gold book that we talked about with the drama. Children really love this book. I love any book that has a map. So Antlered Ship has maps. How to Find Gold has maps. The book we just read in the tracks class for not the fairy, the Backyard Fairies, Witch Hazel, Little Witch Hazel has a really, really good map. Explorers of the Wild has a map. But this How to Find Gold is really about the agree to agree. These 2 need to agree, and they test out theories and they test out ideas, and then they get to dive in literally to their imagination. And it's also a really great time to talk about how they have to figure out how to solve a problem that isn't just shutting the book. So it's like that. This is a really good book to read as well. And the Ramble Shambles, do you have that one yet, Amy? So anybody who likes Pippi Longstocking, this is like a good replacement for Ramble Shamble children. I mean, a replacement for that, because it's about children who live on their own. And that's always appealing. Children like books, that's why there's so many of them, of where they live on their own, and they love drama where they live on their own. And so that's something that we always kind of engage in, which is one of the reasons why I try to remove myself from the play as much as possible, because once I do, the fun is much greater. And Roxaboxen is the original like documentation, I guess, of imaginary play, because that's a true story. And takes place in the desert of Arizona, I think. Yeah, Arizona. But it reminds me of, because I was born in Utah, and it reminds me of how we used to play there. But anyway, and it is war. They have a battle, and they have a system of governance, and it's good because they actually have, as a main character, a facilitator of the play, which is the girl that you see right there on the right hand side. And it's the idea that the role that we're trying to play is the older child who's kind and open to ideas, but also kind of runs the game a little bit. That's what Diana does. So, and I don't know, I think Finn probably does. I think I've seen Diana do it, so I know that she can. And then this is a new book that we just introduced this year that the children really like, because it inspires garden play, and the idea that there's seeds and there's gardens that we can plant. So there's been a lot of gardening in the backyard this year. And Maggie B is another boat journey one, and it's a sweet one because there's cooking and there's a goat. Like, one of the best problems that I've ever had was, like, I'll sit down anywhere, like on a stump or in a chair, and I'll say, the goats have all gotten out of the gates and they're just gone. I don't know how to get them. We need to start up the tractor and go get them. In this case, I would say the goat's on our boat, but like, what if it jumped off? Do you know? So it's like and we build the boat. So this is the vehicle that Amy was talking about. It's like you starting to build the space. It's something that is consistent with all children's play, is that they shape the space that they're in, which is like what Roxaboxen gave us, and Maggie B and Antlered Ship. Those all give us. And then this is Backyard Fairies. I'm giving a shout out because we have fairies of all different skin colors and body types. So it's very good that way. And I just read this to the Leaves class, and I said, this is a true story, because Phoebe, while she was unschooled, I don't know if anybody came home and talked about unschooling as a thing that they should be doing, but I said she was unschooled and she really believes this. I mean, this is when she was growing up. She thought that if she turned, she would be able to see some fairies. And I loved reading it to the Leaves class because they all were doing this. They were like, she just needs to turn and look. They're right there. So it was just really nice to read it to them. Rainstorm is also a wordless book that has a key and a space to unlock. And I was thinking that one day I'll count all the books that they have. I just read a great book called, I don't even know, I'd have to look it up, a young adult fiction book that was about going through a space and finding another world, and those books are many and wonderful. So this is like a picture book version of that children can really jump into. They dive into this idea of going through a tunnel. And then Secret Shortcut, we're almost done, right? The Secret Shortcut is a book of full imagination of where these two children are trying to get to school on time. So it's usually, I would say that it's for elementary school age, but young children really enjoy it because of how much how many shenanigans, is it many shenanigans or much shenanigans that these two get into as they pretend to get to school and are always late because of what they do. Is that okay? Anybody have any questions? We'll do that. So Amy's going to tell us the next thing. Thank you, Amy.
Yes, sure. I just was reminding, like I said earlier, we're going to dive into conflict and play, including why conflict occurs and how to scaffold conflict resolution in an upcoming session. So just know that that's coming. And I see that it's 8:59. So Megan did ask in the chat, she asked me in the chat if we were going to share those book titles. Yes, I'll be sure to share those book titles in a separate email. And then of course, this recording will get posted on the YouTube channel, but just in case you wanted that list sooner because you wanted to put some holds at the library or just make a trip there, we'll do that. And if there's any other questions, you can feel free to drop them in the chat, questions about play arcs, or also then just a reminder, Megan and Leslie are also happy to listen to questions about the COVID case at our school. So thanks for being here. And I'm just going to hang around to look at that chat too, just in case.
Thanks so much, Amy. So yes, everyone, thank you all so much for